Welcome to the official Lost podcast. Today we sit down with Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje, or Triple A as he's affectionately known. And yes, he does change tires. Later we'll turn it over to executive producers Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse to discuss the next episode, What Kate Did. Of all the tail section survivors, none is currently more fascinating than Adewale. Born in London, England, Adewale regularly split his time between the UK and Nigeria. He quickly rose in notoriety after being cast in Congo and went on to star in numerous hit films and TV shows, including playing opposite our own Harold Perrineau in Oz.
For your protection when we travel.
You made this? So what's your name, anyway?
Mr. Echo.
Mr. Echo.
Yes.
It's true it will be at least a while before we can even hope to have an opportunity to learn more about Adewale's fascinating character, Mr. Echo. But that doesn't stop us from going behind the scenes this week to learn a little more about the actor behind the man that truly embodies Roosevelt's saying, "Walk softly and carry a big stick."
When I read the part, it was kind of like carved for me. And in some, such a strange way, it's like what you go through in your life, the challenges were present in that character. So it offered me the challenges that I wanted to take in my own life, you know what I mean? So it was a convenient vehicle for me to deal with, issues and areas in my life that I thought were important. I've done TV before and very similar to this framework, whereby you just roll with it. Depending on what kind of person you are, really. I mean, it can stress you out if you're a control freak, or it can be liberating because, you just take it as it comes. I think it's a bit of both with me, I do have that perfectionist side and I like to know what's going on. But at the same time, it's nice. I think you get more variety in your character because you don't know where it's going to go and it becomes organic and you just flow, and it's more based on the interaction with the other characters, and it starts to grow and formulate. And a lot of the times you can't really predict or premeditate that. You just have to let it happen and then you try to catch it. And so it can be a very progressive and positive experience, if you're not too much of a control freak.
What are you looking at?
We have to cut inland.
What? Into the jungle? They said their people were on the beach. If we keep walking...
The beach goes into a peninsula ahead. May not be possible.
May not?
May not.
You're doing this to get the cowboy back faster, aren't you?
Like many of the other newcomers to the cast, Adewale wasn't given much information about his new character, Mr. Echo. But that didn't stop him from musing on what little information he did know.
In all honesty, they told me, but, I can't tell you because they'll fire me, they said. So, what I mean? That's kind of really where it's at. They're very anal about these sort of things, which I find, it's understandable, but I find it really comical. Because they're always telling me, oh, go to it, but shut your mouth. And, anybody who knows me, I can't keep my mouth shut. So. But no, they told me. But the thing about what they've told me is it changes. It changes because what they've told me, once they saw the rushes and once they saw my actual performance or dynamic with other characters, it's already changed from what they told me. So in truth of the matter is, I really don't have a clue. I think it'll be great. I think it'll be good. It'll have to be.
Of course, not all the faces in the cast were new to him. Adewale had worked with Harold Perrineau before, who plays Michael.
It's good to know somebody here. Also, he's got East Coast flavor. I don't know if you know Hawaii, as it's pronounced. It's quite laid back, and it's very different. I've made a huge relocation from Europe, London, to hear. So it's very different. So to know somebody with your flavour is helpful. It's very helpful for the integration. But on the work tip, it's cool too. We never actually, in Oz, we didn't actually have too many scenes, but it's just, we got a lot more stuff in this one. And it's interesting because a lot of the stuff I'm doing is not necessarily nice with him. There's a fine balance, but we'll find it.
What, you talking now?
It's been 40 days.
You've been waiting 40 days to talk.
You waited 40 days to cry.
Peeling back layers to reveal character may be the actor's job, but creating those layers falls squarely on the writers. As we're wont to do, we now turn it over to executive producers Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof to explore what's on their mind in creating this week's adventure, What Kate Did.
Hi, this is Carlton Cuse.
And Damon Lindelof.
And welcome to our podcast, which will be sort of a discussion a little bit about last week's episode, Collision, and this week's episode, What Kate Did.
Now, yes, what an interesting title for an episode, What Kate Did. What could it possibly be about, Carlton? But before we discuss that, I guess...
Would it be about what Kate did?
It would be, indeed. So for so many years, people have asked us, what did Kate do? So we just, instead of beating around the bush, we decided to just come out and do that. So
and
subtlety aside.
It took us like 2 days to break the episode, but like a week to come up with the title.
Yeah, that was tough.
All right, but let's start with Collision, which is an episode hopefully a lot of you guys have already seen, and this was a big episode for us because this was the episode where finally the two camps merged. The tailies and the fuselage survivors all unite at the end. And personally, seeing the very beautifully shot show by Stephen Williams when the dog got me when Michael and Vincent were reunited. That's pretty much when my own personal waterworks started.
Yeah, the dog is the dog moments on the show are sort of a classic cavalcade of tear-jerking moments. When the dog goes swimming out after the raft, and then when Shannon's with the dog, it's like Vincent is sort of totally money, and you gotta there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But sort of other than the merge last week and those great reunions between Bernard and Rose, another thing we were really invested in, and Sun and Jin seeing each other again, and probably arguably one of Carlton's and my favorite moments in the show ever, when Echo and Locke meet for the first time and say hello to each other.
Let's do our version. I'll do it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You do. You want
to
be Locke?
I'm going to be Locke.
No. You should be.
Yeah. You do.
Okay.
You do the better Echo.
Okay. You be Locke. So
this is like one of those things that just kind of, we literally watch this thing over and over again in terms of personal kind of sheer amusement. This moment when Echo and Locke meet is sort of one of our complete personal high
because
points.
we know what's coming, which is a lot. But,
yeah. So there's the water sort of dripping in the back of the tunnel, and
right, and then Locke has just entered the code,
yeah,
and we hear the flip of the numbers back to 108, and then
he walks into the tunnel and he sees Echo standing there, and they stare at each other for a long time, and then he says, "Hello,"
and then Echo stares back at Locke, and he goes, "Hello."
And it's just the greatest thing ever. I mean,
now that's good writing. That is quality writing. It really is.
I mean, we are. So you can see how we amuse ourselves in our job here.
Okay, so we were supposed to pick it up and move along, but again, big shout outs last week. We feel Michelle did a beautiful job, and hopefully the audience has a much better understanding of why she is as tough as she is, and and not just her vocation, which is that she was a cop, but also that she was shot many times, and this caused her to lose her unborn child, which has sort of caused all sorts of emotional issues for her, more of which we'll hopefully be seeing as the series goes on.
And hopefully coming out of this episode, the audience now understands a lot more about her character, and maybe we've developed a little bit more sympathy for Ana Lucia, at least sort of rounded her out, or at least offered some alternative perspectives on who she is and why she is the person that she is. But just to go back to something Damon was saying, this Locke Echo moment is, as Damon said, a real foreshadowing of things to come. Going forward in the series, the relationship between Locke and Echo is going to be really a central focus of the show, and the different viewpoint that those two characters have is something which will really come into play as we go downstream.
And we still don't know really anything about Echo at this point, other than, the fact that he carries this stick around with him that has, sort of great significance. And he's a man of few words, but those words are very significant in terms of who he himself is. And his flashbacks will be coming up after the new year. But
Right.
but then you'll get a much more fundamental idea of why exactly he and Locke are going to become one of the sort of seminal mystical, relationships, sort of powering us through the end of the season. And Adewale and Terry in scenes together. You're going to see another one this Wednesday. It's just magnetic. If you thought our reenactment of the hello scene was good, wait till next week.
Yeah, we're planning to do several script pages for you.
Lord God,
now,
no.
when you were referring to the stick, would that be a clue for the audience to pay attention to the stick,
I
Damon?
would watch the stick. I would, especially it kind of started in the other 48 days when we see him. He plucks the stick from the jungle in the morning after he kills the two others, and we see that he's writing on it, and Libby is sort of asking, but what is he writing on that stick, and
why?
And why?
Right, and I think that the answers to those questions will give you a big clue as to who Echo is and what Echo's sort of future role on the show perhaps will be.
And also we'll be doing an episode that features the Styx flashbacks, which starts sort of the whole teaser is just an acorn.
Exactly.
Exactly, which is fascinating.
And sort of thematically, it's about how the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree.
Right, exactly. That's a good title for it, actually. So, but none of that has anything to do with Kate. And I think one of the things.
Is that it? Is that all we're going to debrief about Collision?
Well,
I will say this though. I think the Saeed Ana Lucia relationship is also something which is really important going forward. I mean, obviously there are some intense emotions that are coming out of this episode between those two characters, and I think that will carry forward into the upcoming episodes in ways that maybe are different than people might think.
They probably have a lot in common, if not for the "I killed the woman you loved" part.
Right.
But
Okay.
So anyway, let's talk about Kate for a minute.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting, obviously you've probably seen some promos for tonight's episode, and you're probably thinking, oh, those sneaky people over at ABC or those sneaky writers on Lost, they're not really going to tell us what Kate did, and to that we say, no,
we're not sneaky. That's what we say.
Sneaky. We are as unsneaky as we are sneaky, but not tonight.
Yeah. We just sort of felt like it was time to finally reveal. And there may be some misunderstanding about this, but this is the episode which will reveal what Kate's original crime was, the reason that she is on the run from the U.S. Marshals. This is the episode that tells us what Kate did, what set her off on her life as a fugitive.
And why.
Why.
Yeah. I think one of the things that...
Well, the what is sort of answered at the beginning of the
very
episode,
quickly, yes.
and the why is sort of the mystery that unfolds over the course of the episode.
Exactly. And, we both think, obviously, that, what the show, the primary criticism that we very often hear is that the show does not give up its mysteries easily. And, and that is something that we have learned to sort of internalize. But at the same time, this is when it's time to give up the answer to a mystery. Tonight's episode is that perfect example of it's time to sort of get back into the love triangle. Sawyer is back,
right.
and Sawyer is sick, very sick. And Kate has an emotional investment in Sawyer. And here's Jack, who she has been basically sort of evolving in her relationship with in Sawyer's absence. So, given
and
that
not expecting Sawyer to be returning.
Right, exactly. Or expecting to be rescued.
Right.
Other than the fact that Sun found the bottle, which she's sort of fairly pessimistic about. Now, upon Sawyer's return, a big flood of emotions sort of comes in for Kate, and this sort of results in tonight's episode. And we just sort of sat around and said, well, we've known now.
It was more of a torrent of emotion.
A torrent, yes. a tempest of emotion.
Tempest? Yeah, it could have been a tempest.
In any
yeah.
case, now is the time to say the
Hailstorm.
audience needs to know. And yes. Well,
Sorry. The audience needs to know.
A tsunami of emotion. The audience needs to know
a
what
cyclonic wave of emotion. Sorry.
There you go. Well, that's sort of the same as a tsunami in many ways. But in any case,
a cyclone is like a hurricane in the southern hemisphere.
They are in the southern hemisphere, I guess. All right. Well, a cyclonic wave of emotion. the alternate title for the episode. But it is time to know what Kate did, and you will find out in just a few short days.
And Evangeline, I think, has never been better than in this episode. She is really, really, really good.
Astonishingly good.
So we really loved it, and we were really pleased with the incredible job that Paul Edwards did directing the episode.
Yeah, he's
Paul's
awesome.
our camera operator, in fact, and he is really one of the cornerstones of our crew, and we like to sort of give a shout out to him because sort of under the under the guidance of Jack Bender, who is our executive producer in Hawaii, who sort of oversees the physical production of the show, and the show is completely shot on location in Hawaii, and even these flashbacks, which, in this case will traverse a big section of Middle America, everything is shot in Hawaii, and they're doing a remarkable job of finding ways to double for places like Iowa in the middle of Hawaii. And the other person who really deserves a shout out is Kevin Blank, our visual effects coordinator and special effects coordinator, who is able to put in effects that you never see as an audience, to make something look like Iowa or something look like Sydney, Australia, but anyway.
And then Jean Higgins should also have a shout out in the Hawaii sort of trio, because she's the one who figures out how to execute it all. But back to Paul, who directed this episode after sort of operating the camera for a year and a half, and we think he just did a beautiful job.
And he sort of is the cornerstone of the guy on set, because we have sort of alternating directors of photography, Michael Bonvillain and John Bartley, and so they are the DPs on every other episode. But Paul is the guy there every episode, sort of really providing the visual continuity of the show, and he's a really smart, creative artist, and we gave him a shot at directing, and sort of with Jack's guidance. I mean, he really did a fantastic job on this episode, so we're really happy about it.
And also we'll just sort of tease out, that you're going to get a nice chunk of mythology this week, especially the Dharma Initiative orientation film, which we saw in the third episode of season 2. I think there's been a lot of speculation about what it means and basically pushing the button and all that. And we will be sort of watching that film again tonight. Well, not tonight, but when the episode airs. Carlton and I watch it every night, actually, just because we love it so much. But in any case, that film, we'll be looking at it in a whole new way, because the people who have now traversed the island and have not seen it, obviously. Michael has not seen it, and Jen has not seen it, and the tail section people haven't seen it either. So their reaction to seeing this film will probably be fairly interesting to watch. I would guess.
And I think it's fair to say that new information will be gleaned.
New information will be gleaned.
Gleaned. Yes.
So let's get to some questions, shall we?
Let's do that.
Carlton, if I may start.
Sure.
Niella 999, just one short of 1,000.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Niella. Good luck with that. Asks, can we expect flashbacks from any of the guest stars on Lost, like Desmond, Rose, and Danielle? I guess Danielle would be Rousseau.
Yes, we call her Rousseau.
We do, yeah.
We're
not
as familiar with her
basis.
as you are.
Pardonnez-moi, Niella.
Niella. So you and Danielle.
Noof.
But yes, that is an extremely good question. We think it would be actually great to do that at a certain point, and I think particularly with Desmond. I mean, Desmond will be coming back, and we're very interested in knowing more about Desmond. So I think it would.
Yeah, like where did he run off to? I mean, if he thought not pushing the button was gonna be catastrophic, why did he run away? Like, where would he?
I mean, the world's still going to be destroyed a couple of miles away on the island.
So it doesn't really make a lot of sense that he'd go running off unless
he had another plan.
What would that plan be, though?
That's an interesting thing to think about.
Fascinating.
But assuming that he did have another plan, but yet somehow ends up back in our encampment.
Yeah, we'd want to know what that plan was.
Right.
And then we'd want to see some flashbacks.
And I think the whole sort of history of him down there in the hatch, pushing the
and
button.
the mysterious Kelvin, who he sort of refers to.
Right. Kelvin, who was the sort of original hatch man.
At least that's what he says. You know, on Lost, you never know.
Right. But I think that would be really cool to explore. So if you guys like the other 48 days, maybe you will see an episode downstream where you'll see something out of the island's past.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
And then obviously with Rousseau, we've sort of always talked about,
doing an episode entirely in French.
Yeah, doing an episode entirely in French. And she's referred to all sorts of misadventures that she had on the island before we came running into her, including the sickness that swept through her research crew, the murder of her lover Robert, and most importantly, the loss of Montan's arm. Which is the story that I've been itching to tell.
Exactly. Is there any connection between the loss of Montan's arm and the fact that Dr. Marvin Candle has a fake hand?
I don't know. Is there? And we also found a glass eye in the Arrow station, which is people just lose body parts, I think, easily on the island.
Exactly.
But it isn't a widely known fact that actually Marvin Candle has a fake hand. You have to sort of watch the film a fair amount of time. So I think that's a good nugget of podcast exclusivity that you just downloaded there.
Wow, that's cool. And would it be possible, Damon, that in a future episode we would discover why Marvin Candle has a fake hand?
I suppose anything's possible, Carlton, but, unlikely. In any case, I think we probably should wrap it up. I know we have a lot of...
Wait, I want to ask you one more question.
You can ask me one more question.
Lost Casts asks,
right.
Obviously someone who's very into the podcasting format.
Already.
Exactly. So, Damon, how much does the speculation from your fans on the message boards and online in general change or affect the writing of the show?
I think we are very interested in what's happening on the boards, and a lot of that is downloaded to us via the writing staff, because obviously we are very busy doing podcasts ourselves and have no time to monitor the boards.
These things take weeks to produce.
But the reality is, as sort of a former board junkie myself on other shows, the boards are a really good place to kind of complain. And very often, it's sort of very rare that people sort of say, I loved the show and I'm going to go post how much I loved the show. More often than not, people post what they hate about the show. And that, unfortunately, can be toxic and get into your head. And you start to go, wow, they hate this, they hate that, should we do this? And it's basically like, the equivalent is, imagine, there was a message board called, Lost Cast, where basically I critiqued everything that you did in the course of your day. I can't believe you got a double latte at Starbucks. That's idiotic. Those things are bad for you.
And you ate that other Twinkie, too, didn't
That's
you?
probably going to affect your purchases the next day. So, we like to put a sort of wall between us and the actual boards. There is a board called thefuselage.com, which I frequent, and actually is made up of sort of fans of the show that I think is a lot more fun and enthusiastic, and less on the negative axis, which we like to sort of check out. But we're always interested in sort of what the fans are thinking about the show, and obviously really interested in sort of what theories they come up with and what they're responding to. And it's fun for us to see how close they are to the truth.
Yeah, and I think it is true. I mean, certainly in terms of the hatch and doing the whole orientation film, that was really driven by a lot of fan reaction that we weren't giving the audience enough about the hatch, and so we decided that the first 3 episodes this year would really download a significant amount of information about the hatch, and that was how we sort of concocted the idea of doing an orientation film as opposed to just having a character spat out a bunch of exposition. We thought this film would be a far better vehicle for basically getting out a lot of information, which sets up a bunch of mysteries. And the Hanso Foundation is something else you guys should pay attention to. That's
you should check out, by the way. They have a website, the Hanso Foundation, apparently, thehansofoundation.org. Which is a
good place to go visit.
But
exactly. More on that to come. All right. Thank you, guys, and we will talk to you soon. Bye, Damon.
Bye, Carlton.
And that concludes our podcast series for now. Please stay tuned to lost.abc.com for news of future podcasts. Until then, namaste.